Hey,
what up, bruh?
What is really good, my brother?
Man, just out here chilling. You know what I'm saying? Trying to live my best life, as they say.
That's what we all trying to do, right? I mean, it's another lovely day, probably where you are. Another lovely day here in Houston.
Not bad in Long Beach, California today. A little warm out, but
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit warm out here. What is it? Almost 100 degrees. I don't even know what it is, but
What's that humidity like out there, though?
Wild. Wild. I know that much. You know what I'm saying? I don't follow the Weather Channel, but I do know that I stepped outside today.
And shit was wild.
Yeah. But we started talking and we didn't tell everybody what they're listening to. So welcome, everybody. Episode 8 or part 2 of episode 7, depending on how you want to look at it. Yeah,
7.2.
7.2.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Our follow-up on last week's conversation about emotional intelligence. I'm your boy, Ali, a.k.a. Hoffa, joined by my boy,
Black Steph, Brujo Mars. We out here.
40 Acres the Hard Way.
Yes, sir.
Your favorite, if you're listening to this, is absolutely your favorite weekly episodic podcast show.
It is. Is that your daughter?
That's my kids not listening. Clearly, for all the things good that I do on the mic, keeping my kids in check isn't one of them. But if you're
it adds flavor. It adds flavor.
It absolutely does. It shows that we do have lives too. We don't just live for this, even though we love doing this. We do this for them. So,
hold on, a cop just like
what?
Rolled up.
Roll snap. Somebody. Let me just make sure I let the listeners know what's going on. If you can't see the video just yet, what happened is I think one of Black Stephan's neighbors heard him podcasting, and he doesn't have a permit in his building to podcast. I think they called the cops on him.
You got a studio permit?
You got a studio permit?
You said Permit Patty called the police on me and shit?
Permit Patty is on the case. 833-402-2349.
Yeah.
Call at us. Leave us a message. Give us a call. Let us know what you're thinking. If you're
they like pulled up on the sidewalk though.
It's getting real. We got to give the people the play-by-play
play-by-play. Yeah, my vantage point isn't the greatest. I'm not gonna lie to you, but I could just see like the tail end of this cop car, and he skirted around real quick.
Skirt.
He's like, yeah, skirt.
He's just giving him the sound effects and everything.
Yeah, man. Yo, you remember Lil Wayne's very first album?
Yep.
Remember The Block Is Hot?
The Block Is Hot.
And he did like every single ad lib and sound effect.
Who do you think is the best ad lib king of all time?
That's tough.
I think the most famous is Lil Jon, right? Like I think everybody knows, like
like
like that whole thing. But I love me some Jim Jones on the ad libs. Have you ever listened to what he says underneath his own lyrics? He's like, I was riding in the city's with me. Like, who said that? The city's with me.
Oh man, yo! At one point, Jeezy used to have that shit locked down with the ad lib.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, man. Jeezy used to have that shit on lock.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, I forgot. Jeezy's up there for sure. Jeezy.
Yeah.
But with that said, as always, if you're on Instagram, follow us, 40 Acres DHW, SoundCloud.com/40 Acres DHW. If you're listening, that's where you're listening right now, and share it with your friends.
Yeah, please do.
Please do. And advertisers, call us, email us, DM us, do something. We got plenty of slots left.
Look, advertising right here. You're already getting it for free.
Yeah.
You already got it for free, man.
I'm only wearing these hats backwards because I don't want to give free advertisement slots, but I can easily turn this hat around.
Yeah, I need to put black tape on Apple. Holla at me. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, just hook me up with a MacBook. We'll call it even.
Even.
You know what I mean?
Even Steven. Like, I don't even like Apple products, but it will advertise them. And if you send him a MacBook Pro, you send me a MacBook whatever. I don't even know. It could be a regular. I'll talk nothing but good stuff about it.
And we need the professional
the Beat Studios.
Yeah, man, the Beat Studio joints.
Oh yeah, we need that.
Apple, holla at us.
Holla at us. So we'll dive right in. Let's catch everybody up, right? So if you listen to last week, catch up to the game. So if you listen to last week's episode, you probably heard us talk a little bit about something called EQ. And EQ, although you might think somehow relates to equality, it does not. It is about your emotional intelligence.
Yes, sir.
When you think of the regular intelligence that someone has, we usually label that as IQ, right? That's your intelligence quota or quotient, depending on whatever you call it. EQ is your emotional quotient, right? And that's your ability to understand yourself, understand other people, understand the way to behave around other people, and then ultimately be able to assess others to show empathy and really help manage your relationships for positive outcomes. So you hear I use the word relationships there, and that's the focus of the second episode here. So Black Stephan, what do we got for them this week? What are we going to dive into with this relationship segment? What do you think we want to give them?
Kind of a theme of my life of the last couple weeks has been this topic right here. So I definitely got a couple anecdotes that I can, share or what have you. Matter of fact, there was one that I was sharing on on Instagram after a wine tasting I had last night. So it was a little bit of drunk Instagramming going on. So, but I put out this anecdote on my story about a young lady that I used to date and some of the issues that we had and how I was able to take some of, those situations and better myself, better not only just like how I comport myself and behave in a relationship, but also like the types of people that I'm choosing to, start these relationships with and the reasons behind them. The reasons behind why I'm either finding myself attracted to like the same type of people over and over again and finding myself in like the same type of situations over and over again. And at some point you have to just be like, we're done. You know what I'm saying? But again, none of that can happen unless you have been following, exactly what we were talking about here with EQ, because you know what I'm saying? It's like, if something happens, you can resolve yourself to say, I don't want to do this anymore. But until you actually start taking those steps to say, okay, let me do this. Let me do this evaluation of myself. You know what I'm saying? Let me do this evaluation of some of the situations that I've been in, and start learning from them. Like until you actually start doing that work, you're going to just continue to find yourself in the same rut over and over and over again until you change that. And is it Einstein that said it? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting different results. Absolutely. And, like honestly, that's it was a cycle that I found myself in. And I'm glad to be coming out of my insanity at this point. I'll put it like that. Absolutely. And I think it's two very quick things that happen when you do that self-assessment, right? First thing is that aha moment, right? As we like to call it, you go, aha. It's not them, it's me. Right. And then the second one is that awkward moment, right? When you realize, wait, it's not them, it is me. Like you have. Well, and not even just it's not them, because it can still be them, but it's also you as well. Like, and well, I think the reason why I say that is if you ate liver today. Okay. I hate liver. I would never eat them. But I know that because I've had it once, right? Just like I'm pretty sure you've had liver once in your life, and that confirmed that you never want to eat it again, right? Pretty much. Somehow still keep eating liver every Saturday. That's you. That's not the liver. The liver hasn't done anything. Liver is still itself, right? So when I say that, I mean that from the perspective of the person is probably being who they were or are when you met them the whole way through the relationship. Sometimes people change. That's true. And I think, acknowledging that everybody changes, even themselves, right? Other people. But for the most part, like the person that you started liking and the person that you stopped liking at the end of a relationship aren't very dissimilar. Mm-mm.
It's you. Your perspective is really what's changed along the way. It's like
100%.
What you liked at the beginning probably might not be what you like at the end, right? Like if you meet somebody, I'll give you a perfect example. And absolutely, this is a good one for us to dive into because I know you have some opinions on this. Mm-hmm. If I meet a girl or a guy, if it doesn't matter, whatever you prefer in your life, but I met them somewhere where typically there's a level of promiscuity aligned with it, right? Let's just say a strip club, for example, right? I go to a strip club and I meet someone. The person is dancing, we hit it off, we have a relationship.
Right.
Now, there was something there that I was okay with at the beginning. Now the person continues to strip, and dance, and now the relationship starts getting more serious, and you start seeing the same attributes that person displayed the night you met them. They continue to display them as time goes along. You're like, I really don't like that. Like now you with me, you got to kind of lay off that. You can't be out there dressed like this or talking to guys like this when you see them in the street, or like, you smiling too much when you're getting the drinks at the bar. Like, why are you looking like that?
Right.
To me, that is all the guy or the person, right? Like, this is on me. Like, I was okay with it when it was directed towards me, but the moment that I was in this, like something, we labeled something to be a little bit more serious, we want that person to change, right?
Right.
And I think that's forcing your desires on someone else rather than the compromise that is relationships, right? It's like you communicate what you like and what you don't like, and then you can't expect that somebody else is going to change along the way.
Exactly. Yeah. Having dated a couple strippers in my life, you know what I'm saying? It's just one of those things.
Names.
Like,
we need names now.
I can't do it. But
shout out to Candy from King of Diamonds.
Yeah. So but you have to go into it with that understanding, and like, again, and not to say that these relationships would have ended up being lasting relationships had I, not done kind of those things that you're talking about, or like showed that extra amount of jealousy or been a little more insecure. Those relationships may not have ended, but even more importantly, even if they would have ended, who's to say that like me and those people would not still be like friendly, or what I'm saying, like would have still been able to maintain a positive relationship just as friends going forward, right? So it's like you lose out on a lot of stuff by doing that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I know a lot of people have this thing like anybody I used to deal with is dead to me. Like I personally just don't buy into that. Like some of them people is dead to me. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, man, like who's to say that like there wouldn't have been some other positive relationship or situation that could have come out of that had I not comported myself that way. But now what I would say is I think like those situations showed me something about myself, is that they showed me. So as much as I am that person of like social justice and like people should be autonomous and like all that other stuff, like we shouldn't be, if you're a sex worker, you shouldn't be shamed for that or anything. I know that me, myself, I don't do well. Like I don't do well trying to apply like a monogamous relationship to like somebody who's in that industry. So it's like, I know myself, you know what I'm saying? And it has nothing to do with like, there's something wrong with a woman that performs sex work. Nothing wrong with y'all at all. Like, y'all are wonderful. Keep doing what you're doing. Get your money. But at the same time, I just know that like me trying to I feel like for me, it's fitting a square peg in a round hole. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm trying to have this monogamy, but like the job that you have isn't really conducive to that. And even because of that,
it's only if you believe that job is the person stepping out of the relationship, right? So
well, it not even necessarily stepping out of the relationship, but it's like one of those things where it's like other people see and judge and those kinds of things. And I know a lot of people talk about like, well, you shouldn't give a fuck and da 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 da. But again, if you do give a fuck, I think it's important to recognize that in yourself.
Agreed.
And say, you know what, this is not this is just not for me, and like for my sanity, this is probably not the best route to go down.
Yeah, and if people like who are listening to this don't like know like they're being kind of vague in that discussion there. I'll give you the perfect example. Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, was traded from the New England Patriots, just got paid a bunch of money. Well, he's a really good quarterback, and he's going to do some good things over there. He's in the news recently because he was spotted out on a date with a prominent adult star. Now,
Kiara Mia.
What's her name again? Say it again.
Kiara Mia.
All right. I don't know who she is, but
funny story.
Oh,
a good buddy of mine actually. They either went to high school together or worked together while they were in high school.
Brian Pumper?
Nah. Not Brian Pumper. My homeboy. I got a homeboy that lives out in Pomona. Shout out my dude, Mark Anthony. It's my guy right there. I randomly met that guy at an airport in Tijuana. And he and I like have become best friends ever since then.
TJ buddies.
Yeah, man.
Like it's like Vegas.
Matter of fact, he's getting married in October, and I believe he invited her to the wedding. So I'm curious
if Jimmy G's gonna be there.
I'm curious. I'm a little curious. I'm not even lying. Like I'm kind of wondering.
You were debating whether or not to go. Time is hard. Then you heard about the. Wait a second. There's gonna be NFL. I gotta see this.
Nah, well, him and my girl met. Like I introduced. He has like every year he has like this huge Halloween party out where he lives, and so like he invite since I've known him, he's just invited me every year. But obviously now that I'm in a relationship, it's like I get the +1, right? And so I introduced them this last October, and like especially like him, his girl, everybody, they all loved her. So it's just like they have a whole friendship that's just like even independent of ours. So it's just like when the invitation came in, my girl grabbed it, signed it, and sent it back.
We out here.
Yeah, we out here. So we in the building. I'll keep y'all updated. Let y'all know if Jimmy G show up.
So if you guys haven't already, and chances are you have, because we know we're growing our network of followers here. But most of our followers also know that we're on a YouTube show with a bunch of buddy of ours. That Fresh Cuts the show, absolutely. And we kind of always make fun of the fact that somehow Black Stephan has a connection everywhere. He's the most connected man in Southern California in my eyes. And
I'm so not though. It's just
but you got so many stories that link into each other. It's the 7 degrees of Black Stephan. So,
yeah. No, there's
know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows or hung out with Black Stephan.
Yeah.
So we'll keep bringing you those stories. But that's an example of somebody who like you go, man, I don't know if I could do that, right? Like maybe he wanted to keep that personal, right? Like, but between them, it's become big news, and a lot of the reaction is like, oh, so he likes to get in with adult stars, right? And it's, I think, to your point, if you're self-aware enough and you say, you know what, that's not my thing. I can't deal with somebody who's in an adult industry of some sort, a sex worker, whatever you want to call it. Understandable. Now, if you're the kind of person who's okay with that, nobody should be shamed for that either, right? So it's like, I think, but there's also this mentality that we have, and we've talked about this before, where there's a belief that any woman, and maybe it's tied to the hip hop culture, and I think we've talked about this before, any woman who's been around or decided to, express herself sexually however she wants, the moment that she's ready to turn into a monogamous person, it's like, well, I don't know, she's got all this history or this baggage behind her. And I go, well, I struggle with that because it's like, I know for sure that the same people who are judging this person have similar histories and don't talk about theirs. And I go, so a person who does talk about it is damned if they do. A person who doesn't can judge others as long as their information never gets out.
Right.
And
if you think about it, like back when I was dating, one of the sex workers, I had one of my homeboys. So like I came to him and was just like, yo, what are your thoughts? Here's the situation I'm dealing with. And he was just like, honestly, it least she's honest about it, son. Like, she didn't have to tell you. She didn't, you know what I'm saying? And then he was just like, how many women have you dated out here that was fucking mad niggas anyway? And you know what I'm saying? And like, wasn't getting paid for it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, there's a couple different ways to really look at it from that perspective. You know what I'm saying? You just never really know. But like I said, I've never really had like a hard and fast rule about like, I'm not dating, you know, I would never date a stripper, or I'd never date a what have you. But again, like, you just got to look at every, you know, my whole thing is, in those situations, I've been able to just look at myself and be like, I know myself to the point where like, this is not something I will do well with. Like, this is not something that's going to end well for me. You know what I'm saying? And
even like in a case like that, so we talked about how like self-awareness and social awareness are so important in emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. One thing that's like the undercurrent of all of this is our favorite C word, not white people's least favorite C word. It's called communication, right? Communication, not the C word that you guys were thinking. Communication is the undercurrent of all of this, right? Even when you're trying to figure out yourself, you should be having a conversation with the other part of you going, is this really who we want to be, right? Like, right. And when I say the other person, some people go, you're not crazy if you talk to yourself. You're only crazy if somebody answers back. Well, what I mean is, you talk to the version of yourself that you were, and you talk to the person that you want to be, right? And you go, what did we learn from that? And I think what you highlighted was that there's experiences that we must go through in order to assess, right? Being reflective requires an experience.
Right.
So communicating is key when it comes to like understanding yourself and understanding other people. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to communicate, in my eyes. Again, everybody is different, but I really do believe that it's okay to communicate with somebody the things that you're comfortable with and not comfortable with. Like, right. I think right off the bat, you know, going to someone and saying, hey, I don't feel comfortable knowing that I'm about to commit to a long-term relationship with someone unless I really know what their past is like. And that person might tell you, I'm not comfortable telling anybody what my past is like. And you go, okay. So then we got to keep this, you know, we can't move this relationship any further than where it is. And maybe this is what we're okay with for a while, and we'll figure out things down the line. Maybe somebody might change, right? Somebody might go, that doesn't matter to me anymore. The other person might go, yeah, this doesn't matter to me anymore. Because like, I think that trying to force a square peg in a round hole is the biggest problem in most relationships that we know, right? Like, it's, you know, I want you to be this. I need you to be this. And I never told you that until I expected it from you, right? Like, don't, you know, how many times have we heard people, oh, you know, it's been 7 years, man. I've been dating this person for so long. I'm just going to go ahead and pop the question, or I'm waiting for him to pop the question, or something like that.
We ain't getting no younger. We might as well
do it.
Like, it's the worst reason to get married.
Tell him, Jagged Edge. It's like, we ain't getting no younger. I need to get these 43 kids out. And if you don't, if you don't know what that means, check out the
and it circles all the way back.
Yeah, check out the next episode of Fresh Cuts. You'll like it. But it's
43 of them things, man. Can you imagine?
43 kids, 30 baby mamas. If you haven't heard the
that
story,
shit's wild.
Google it. Now, gentleman out in Chicago was actually beat to death. May he rest in peace. But the story kind of just headlines that he has 43 children with 30 different babies' mothers. And it's like,
it didn't headline. That was the headline.
That was the headline.
Father of 43 dies
in really care at all that he got beat to death. You know, a 63-year-old man got beat to death. It was just more like, oh, you know what? He got beat to death, but did you hear what he did when he was alive? Like,
look, man, here's the thing. I think his reincarnation is very secure now. He got 43 kids. He got a lot of routes to come back through.
Or maybe he was the reincarnation of Wilt Chamberlain, and he was trying to figure out a way to, you know, continue the reincarnation. No, I think that wouldn't make sense, because I think Wilt was still alive 63 years ago. So I think so, yeah. I don't know. We'll check.
Well, I mean, you know, is reincarnation like an exact science? We don't, never know.
Who knows?
Never know.
Never know. We'll take an attempt at it the next time we talk to you guys about spirituality and science. It'll be fun.
You remember when people were saying YOLO?
You only live once.
Yeah. There was this Buddhist lady that said it to me, and I just looked at her like, fuck are you talking about? And she didn't, and then she was like, I don't understand why you're looking at me like that. I'm like, nigga, you're Buddhist.
She's like, no.
Like reincarnation is kind of like your whole thing.
She's like, when we reach a state of nirvana, it's just really that we only lived once. That's all it is.
She couldn't. Nah. She was like, oh, I never even thought about that.
Yeah. So the other
I'm not gonna say what I was about to say. I'm gonna leave that alone.
We'll save that joke for the unedited mixtape here. One of the other things about experiences and why relationships are about learning from experiences, although it takes experiences for you to learn more about yourself, there's also other experiences that you can visually see or that you may have lived through that may not be your own, that also have an impact and influence on the way that you're going to be as a person. I'll give you an example, and then I know, Stephen, I know you have some examples of your own that you wanted to talk through. But, most of us who grew up where I grew up, and this is a fact, about 99.9% of all of my friends grew up in single parent households, right? All of our fathers were gone. It was just our mothers who were our moms and our fathers. And I'm one of those folks as well. And I think when you grow up, you start growing up learning things from different people, right? So now, instead of learning what it's like to be a father and a family man from your father, you're learning it from your mother, which is not a terrible thing.
Not a bad thing.
But you're also getting the precedent set in your mind that it's okay to be absent as a father because somebody else will do the job for you, right? And this is where learning from other people's relationships and experiences start to, grow on us, right? Where now, for some time, many of the folks that I know couldn't commit to a serious relationship. Why? Because what they saw was it's okay to just be around and do whatever it is and then just move on, right? And that's something that you can learn from and say, well, if I was a fatherless child, would I want my child to feel the same way? That's retrospect, right? That's reflecting. That's going, what would I do if I had a child? Well, I want to be there for them, and that's a goal of mine in my life. And my wife knows that very dearly, right? It's like she grew up in a household where she had both of her parents until her 30s. I grew up in a household where I only had one of my parents with me. And I know that from our kids, our desires for them to grow up with both of their parents until whenever God will have us here, and that's our plan. And I think that when you see those things, whether it's, and we talked about this in the other show, whether it's misogynistic behavior towards women, whether it's, indifference towards like really wanting to have conviction on what you think it is that it takes to have good relationships with other people, because what you've seen from others is you don't have to do those things. You can learn from those. You can be reflective on other people's mistakes as well.
And the crazy thing about it is that those types of experiences really do honestly cut both ways. And what I mean by that is two people can be in that same experience, and one will follow that same example, and the other one will say, you know what? This is not what I want for my life. This is not what I want for my kids. This is not what I want for, my future wife, husband, partner, whatever. My goal is to do this other thing. I've seen it a lot. Like I have plenty of friends that come from like just straight up dysfunction and like have become like model citizens and like model in the way that like most other people aren't. Like really, really good buddy of mine, like parents, and his parents, stayed together throughout the whole time, but it was still dysfunction, right? So lots of gambling, lots of, not being able to hold down jobs, sloughing off responsibilities, just a toxic situation. Even though like the family stayed together, just a lot of toxicity in that situation. A lot of drug use, a lot of alcoholism, all that kind of stuff. So the guy that I know that I'm friends with, like, don't drink alcohol, has never smoked anything, has never touched a drug, illicit or otherwise. Like, that was his response to growing up in a specific set of circumstances. And he said to himself, like, I don't want this dysfunction to continue in my life once I'm out of here. And every single step that he needed to make in order, now granted, do I think some of those things are overkill for me and my lifestyle? Maybe, you don't have to just abstain from everything, but everybody's different. You know what I'm saying? So like maybe he has a propensity for alcoholism, and maybe it is better. But again, it all comes back to knowing yourself, knowing your emotions, knowing what you see a particular set of circumstances, and just being able to run the simulation in your head to say, you know what, these are the possibilities of the things that could happen, and this is where I'm going to make my decision. You know what I'm saying? Like, absolutely.
And like to that point, it's important to note that I can even say from the example of sometimes when you do things like that particular example. So I don't smoke, I don't drink, I abstain from those things. Not that I've never drank or anything like that. I have in the past. It's just not my thing now. Mm-hmm. And there's a tendency for people to feel like if you are that way, you look down at others who do those things, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's okay as a person to tell people.
You're a little judgmental sometimes.
I come off that. I know I come off that.
I'm playing. I'm completely kidding.
I do come off that way because part of it is I am challenging people to challenge themselves. And challenge me back, right? Like I do want to be challenged back sometimes, but not in the way that I want you to feel like, oh, I look down at you because.
So that's what I would say. Actually, to your credit. Every time we've ever had a conversation about smoking, drinking, whatever, it's never been, hey, you know what, you should put that cigar down, you should put that, joint down, you should put the drink down, whatever. It's always like, hey, here's a perspective for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, consider this, and then you'll lay it out, and and again, like when you do that, exactly, when you do that, you like if I feel a way about that, that's completely on me. Like if I take that, if the way you presented that, and if I take that as like, oh, Ali thinks he's better, that's completely all in my head, because there's nothing that you've done in that situation to be like, well, you guys drink and I don't, and therefore I'm the, you know what I'm saying?
And to be clear, you mentioned this last week when we talked about emotional intelligence. You also have to know your audience, right? You or other people who have spoken to about this have given me signals that it's okay for me to state some of the things that I'm saying. Gotcha. And they may not be intentional signals, but even when somebody says, "Man, I've been smoking a lot lately. I gotta relax a little bit," that is when I will chime in and say, "Here's a perspective." Oh. it might just help trigger something that.
Absolutely.
I think that it is, there's a saying in Spanish that says, "El que sabe no muere como el que no sabe," right? We know that, which means the person who knows will never die the same way as the person who doesn't know. Mm-hmm. I'm just making sure you know. Like if you know and you go, hell yeah, and I'm gonna die with this cigar in my mouth and this drink in my cup, I go, that's you. That's
you, bro. Yeah.
Listen, if you haven't seen me or an image of me, I'm a bigger guy. I've spent my entire life being a bigger guy, and I work really hard, or I'm trying to get back to working really hard to get myself in a better physical condition so I can be here for a long time for my family. That doesn't mean that, that I'm above eating a cheeseburger or even Taco Bell, which we've talked about, right? But you've challenged
not for the next 3 months, bro.
Not for the next 3 months. I've been challenged. If you haven't heard, which you haven't, because it was in a group chat, so you haven't heard it yet. I've been challenged that I can't eat Taco Bell for the next 3 months. I'm 14 days in, and now I don't have the desire 14 days later. But the first 3 days, I was telling Steven about this. I was literally like sweating, going, God damn, I gotta go to the drive-thru, man. It was crack.
I need some cinnamon twists.
Exactly. And you know what was the eye-opening thing for me? Remember, when you know it's not like you don't know. I love Taco Bell until you sent that message that said the 2018 #1 Mexican restaurant in the United States, according to voters, was Taco Bell. And that social aspect threw it completely out of whack in my life. Where I was like, wow, people really consider Taco Bell
Mexican food. Yeah, man.
And you see, and because of that, it might be years before the next time I have a burrito or anything from there, because that, now I know that this is more of not just about the health aspect. There's also social aspects to it.
Yeah, 100%. So speaking of the social aspect, I was in bed with my girl this morning when you had texted, when you texted that. And so her and I have decided that along with you, we are giving up In and Out
No.
for the next 3 months. Yeah.
We've
decided that we're going to do this
as your cheat day, like once every 2 weeks, and just use buns instead of
because what we're going to do is we just decided that we know how much you like Taco Bell, bruh. Like it's no small feat to say I'm not going to eat Taco Bell for the next 3 months. So we were just like, you know what? We need to have Ali's back here. And you know what I'm saying? We just need to let him know we support the shit and it's a good idea. And therefore I love you guys. We're gonna do something similar.
I love you guys. And I want you to know this. I am super appreciative of you guys joining me and showing solidarity. I would like for our listeners to do something very similar. You don't have to choose. We're not going to choose for you. Put down in the comments in the SoundCloud section, or if you follow us on Instagram, or if you want to email us, whatever it is, call us and tell us, hey, I'm going to stop eating this. Don't choose 3 months. It could be anything. It'd be fun.
And it doesn't even have to be like food related necessarily. Yeah, like just something that you're gonna.
How about this? How about this? Since you've told me of examples, I bet you're like me, right? People go, man, you're like one of the easiest people to talk to. You know a lot about relationships. And it's like, I don't really know that much. No. I just help people. I just ask people questions about themselves. And they go, right. Damn, you know so much. I go, no, I just ask myself the same questions and I'm not sure you've asked yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
How about somebody put in the comments below, I'm going to take the next 3 months to focus on me. If you put that in the comments, I'd love that. These people alive. I think that when it comes to relationships, I talk to my wife about this all the time. There's so many people who are like, I can't find a good relationship. Everything doesn't work. And I go, have you spent some time having a relationship with the person who matters the most? Who's that? Yourself. Take some time and be the better version of yourself. If you've always wanted to go kayaking, go kayaking. If you always wanted to take a trip to the other side of the world and backpack for 3 weeks, go do it. If you wanted to find a better job so you can make yourself happy, go do that. Yep. Because those things will lead to the opening of doors that'll get you to that person who will support you in that journey.
This leads us to another anecdote that you just made me think of. So there's this person very, very close to me in my family who has had the tendency of jumping from like relationship to relationship, and like in a very serious manner, not even just like relationships, but like marriages. You know what I'm saying? So like one marriage ends, whoop, less than a year later, this nigga with somebody else.
The time off, time to switch.
Yeah, man. So it's just like, it's one of these things. And, I feel like I understand why this person is that way. But, I used to always tell this person, like, yo, just be by yourself. Like, you don't need to go out. You don't need to do any of this. Like, you don't need to be dating. Like, just chill. Like, just chill, be by yourself and figure out what it is that you really want.
Yep.
And like, this person is just completely incapable of it. Like, unfortunately, but it'll
one day. Well, you know what?
Maybe when they're dead.
I think was it you and I who said that we both believe that people should be given second chances and sometimes third chances or whatever, 100%. Because eventually people will learn, right? I mean, what you're willing to tolerate and myself are very different as well than other people, but right. Like, I do think I give people the benefit of the doubt that, some people are hard-headed, some people. And here's the thing. If people just don't want to change, I think it's important to acknowledge that you just like that shit. Like, you're just one of those people who really just enjoy whatever.
Man. You enjoy that misery. Like, and some people just do, bro. Like, that's not even a statement like, I don't know. Is it, people make these outlandish statements on like social media and shit. Like, if you go to bed before midnight, you're not working, like shit like that. And like, I just feel like that's one of them is like, people say shit like, well, did you really, make that decision? But like, that's honestly, that's one of the real ones, because
we got to meet that person who has that voice that you just did. Because everybody knows somebody who, if you're going to talk like that. Well, I disagree.
Well, actually,
if you're listening to this and your voice sounds like that, just send us a voicemail. We'd love to use it on the show.
Yeah, man, just call in, leave a message. We got the voicemail set up. It's all ready to go. Absolutely. And the last thing I'll say in regards to what you just mentioned is that I had to end up taking my own advice You know what I'm saying? When it came to that.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've known each other for some years now. And so like, I feel like, you know, the struggle I had when I first got back to California from New York in like dating, like, and it was just kind of like, you know, not to say that it was one after the other, but it was, you know, there was several relationships you were aware of that, you know, that I was in. And you would check up and just be like, so, you know, what's going on? What's happening? And like, it's funny how well people from the outside can see your situation better than like when you're in it. Is because every time I remember back then, and every time like you would either come into town and we would hang out, you'd be like, yo, so hey, what's going on with this person that you were talking to? Oh, and like I feel like you would have like a little smirk in your like on your face, like, yeah, you about to learn real quick. You about to learn real quick, my nigga. Like
only because I knew that based on your response, I knew how serious you were about certain things. So like, got it. You know, things are cool. I'm like, he already has his own doubts in his head. I just
no doubt. But yeah, man, it just got to this point where, and again, you know, there was people that I dated here that like just did some really foul shit. There were other people that I did some foul, fucked up shit too. You know what I'm saying? Like not pushing that blame away from myself at all. But I think that's what I had to end up doing is like, there was a really bad relationship that I had. And it took me a really long time to get over it. And, you know, if it was like all those stages that, you know, they talk about like with addiction and shit is like, you know, denial, anger, exactly. All of that. And like, it was literally like going through a 12-step program, but you know what? I didn't even think about this until as I'm telling this story. Actually, the book that I read that made me kind of switch everything over was a book on emotional intelligence. And like, honestly, it was reading through this book that helped me say, okay, let me take stock in what's going on with my feelings right now. Here's why I feel this way. Here's how that relationship played out that made me feel this way. Now, how can we not find ourselves in these situations anymore? And then, you know, and that was not like a 1 day, 2 day thing. Like that takes time as well. But one of the biggest things that I think that I did for myself, in terms of like my romantic relationships is like, I told myself like, no, like I'm opting out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really got to that point where I was like, I really don't need to be out here in these streets, like getting my heart fucked with and like fucking with other people's hearts at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I truly didn't know myself. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, my responses are based on like, how much into you am I? Like, how much into you, how sexy do I think you are? And that's bullshit. Like, cause that shit, at the end of the day, that shit don't matter anyway. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you need to have in order to build a lasting relationship, like you have to have the shit built on substance. Yep. And so like, that was one of the things that I learned about myself is like, I was mad shallow, like seriously. And so it's just like, there's just all these different things that when you know, I was watching a Eddie Wong show a while ago and he was in Jamaica and the dude that he was interviewing was talking about how Jamaicans as a country, as a nation, would be able to like kind of overcome this neo-colonialism of tourism and all this other stuff and actually like become like a power. And what he mentioned was Castro. And he said, there comes a time where you have to pull away from everything else and incubate yourself. There comes that time where you have to pull everything back and say, this is what I have. This is what I'm able to do. Yep. Now that I've done this work, now I can come back 5 years, 6 years, 7 years later, and then re-engage the market. And it was like one of the most amazing things that he said, because even when we think about even Castro and Cuba and like, you know, the blockade and all that stuff, I don't know if we necessarily think about it like in those terms, as a time of self-awareness as a country, right? Like, right. Well, where do we want our liberty to be? Where do I want our principles to guide us? Exactly.
Never thought about it.
It's just an interesting perspective. And again, not to say that I'm for that or against that or what have you.
I was gonna say, because remember, this is where people can see things
right? Exactly.
But it's so interesting to hear it that way because
exactly. So I think that was as me individually, that was very poignant. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the work that I was doing at that time. Is like I'm at the house, like I'm not really going out too much. I'm not like texting this whole, like I don't have this whole line of chicks that I'm like sending good morning texts to every morning, like shit like that. Like I literally was not dating, talking to, flirting with, like I literally like incubated myself.
You take the dick pic, then delete it and go, nah, I'm not gonna send it. There's no need to send it. There's no need to send this anymore. You take a picture, smile, then delete it and go, yeah, that's just for me.
Look, hey, my dick look good, son. Sometimes I just be wanting to take pictures of my dick and smile and be like, yeah.
I'm never gonna validate that for anybody who's into. So if you do, if you're his lady, we'll get you.
Man, my dick handsome, son. My dick handsome.
So with that, I think I do want to say a couple quick points about what you just said, and we'll take our first break here, or excuse me, a musical break before we'll wrap this up. One, I think we talked about this on the other show, and I want to make sure I highlight it here. You know what the two most powerful words are in the American dictionary?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. They are the first step to reconciliation with anyone, including yourself. Sometimes you do have to look in the mirror and say, I'm sorry. We put ourselves through this. We won't do it again.
Man,
right?
bruh. Yeah, I've put myself in some fucked up situations.
And to that point, that cycle of, 12 steps trying to get yourself through it, it starts off with acknowledging that you have a problem, right? Like, as they say, the first step to recovery is acknowledging that you have a problem. The second step is actually forgiving yourself. Yeah. Like, that's the one that people forget. It's like, you have to forgive yourself. You did make a mistake, or you will continue to make mistakes, right?
And you know what? Just real quick, all of those things that you're saying is like, that even goes back into like people that make self-deprecating remarks about, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I ain't shit. Fuck, I'm stupid. Da, da, da. Like, yo, bro, like when you vocalize shit, or even when you think it, dog, like honestly, you don't even have to say this shit. When that thought creeps up in your head and remains there, dude, like, what do you think? How do you think that affects your psyche? Like, you are telling yourself, you are the Great Debaters. Denzel's character told the dude, you wouldn't punch yourself in a physical fight, so why in a verbal fight are you going to talk shit about yourself? You know what I'm saying? And that, like, that's what you're doing. Like, when you say fucked up shit about yourself, I ain't shit, I'm stupid, you begin to live up to like those statements.
Absolutely. Here's something for the listeners, because I've actually spoken to some people and they go, oh, that podcast stuff you're doing, it's really cool. I wish I could do it, but yeah, I don't sound good on this, or I don't know if I can articulate things the way that you can. I don't know if some people don't even use the word articulate. They go, I
Aaron Judge. Sorry, guys.
412 feet. 412 feet to left center. But the so what's happening is we're actually watching the Yankee game simultaneously. It's actually, for those of you who are going to get to watch this video when we finally start posting these on YouTube, it's actually happening right over Black Stephan's shoulder. I can see showing the replay as we speak. It looks a little paused, whatever. But here's the deal, guys. You have to be able to get past that yourself. You know what I mean? Just say, I'm sorry, forgive yourself, and get ready for the next phase, which is focusing on yourself. Absolutely. Now, we're going to take a quick break here, a quick musical break, of course. Advertisement slot still available. We'll come back. We'll wrap on relationships, give you this week's It's Lit Report fortune cookie. We'll be back, y'all. We are back.
We back.
Were you Millie rocking to
I was,
Tamia right now?
I was merely rocking it to Mia, bruh.
Ooh, I really like what you.
Hey.
Hey, go all the way up with it. Bring it down. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, to me, man, one of the most underrated
Oh yeah,
R&B singers and true beauty. I know. Shout out to Grant Hill. Salute.
doing the thing.
And they were actually one of the first key Black love couples that I can remember of that wasn't spoken about. It wasn't one of the people.
This is before people was hashtag Black excellence, love, Black love, and all that. Yeah, man. They were kind of they were definitely on the.
Yeah, a power couple. One, was a dominant NBA player when healthy. The other was very, very successful.
I saw that asterisk you put up there.
I had to put that out. People be like, yo, if Grant Hill was healthy, he'd be like Michael Jordan. I'm like,
yeah, but he wasn't. Hey, he was the man though. Grant Hill, he was that dude.
And the sneakers were they Reeboks? I think they were.
Filas. Yeah, bro. Those first year ones. I had a couple pairs of those, man. Yeah, man.
So if you still have a pair of those, put a picture in the comments in the chats down somewhere, or email it to us. I want to see a
current parent of Grant Hills from
exactly. And don't send us no Steph Currys neither. We don't want to see that.
Nah. So, although I do own some stock in what is that? What's his Under Armour? There we go.
Under Armour. Well, interestingly enough, Steph Curry and Aisha are also kind of a power couple in themselves, and another example of Black love. And trust me, guys, when we say Black love, it doesn't mean it's the only kind of love that should exist. We're just highlighting that, these are relationships that weren't supposed to last, but actually lasted and show true commitment to each other. And I think where I was going before we wrapped was one of the key things that you said was how sometimes people are enamored with the idea of being in love, right? That's what it is. So that's how it starts off. When you first fall in love with somebody, you think you're going to be with them forever, right? Because that feeling is so exciting and so impressionable on you, especially if it's your first time feeling it, that you think that this is the feeling that you're going to have forever. Now,
real quick. So that's a chemical, right? That does that.
It is an endorphin.
Is it endorphin, serotonin, something like that?
Yep.
What if somebody came out with a medicine that would block that shit? In the first eliminate the honeymoon phase of a relationship.
Well, then those people would end up finding that I believe heroin releases the same thing out of your body, and they'll take that countermeasure.
All right, bad idea, guys. My fault.
No, but but here's the thing. I think what you're talking about is what I was actually going to say. Really, where a relationship becomes solid is after that, right? Once you're done with that feeling and you've gotten past the whole honeymoon stage, as they say, what you should be thinking about is what makes me know that I want to be with this person for the rest of my life. If you say because the last year, 6 months, 2 years has been so great, I can only imagine what the next 28 are going to be like. Are you riding? Now, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, just because Kiki loves you and is riding doesn't mean that you should marry Kiki, because what you're going to find out is eventually Kiki might not want to ride no more. maybe Kiki might not want to love you no more.
Or maybe Kiki, wants a better ride. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Maybe Kiki wants to drive.
Maybe Kiki wants to drive.
Maybe Kiki
been waiting to tell your ass that your car is trash. But she didn't know when to say it. Now, that honeymoon phase is going to be over. When that's done, it cannot be that you try to leverage that small sample size and say, I'm going to make that a life's worth of love. You can't. You can't extrapolate it, right? You can't put it in a cup and say, I'll put it in the freezer for a rainy day when I don't love you. I'll just drink some of that. It's not the way it works. Instead, what you should be looking for is the same elements of emotional intelligence. Is this person showing you everything that you need to want to learn more about them for the rest of your life?
Major key right there.
Right? This is where the same relationship that you have with yourself about continuing to learn every day who you are, for your true passion, your partner, that is born from the desire to want to learn more and more about them every day. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to wake up every morning with a notepad and go, so tell me, how do you feel about fried beans today? Or, what do you think about gyms? Or what are your thoughts on President President Trump and Putin's relationship, which we go into in very much detail on the other show called Fresh Cuts, so check it out. But instead, it's learning through interactions, right? Like stuff like, oh, hey, boo, I'm trying to go out running today. Well, I don't really feel like running. Damn, she didn't want to run yesterday either. Is everything all right? Yeah, you know what? Running isn't my thing. Oh, but you were running when we were dating. Like when we were in that, you were like, yeah, I only did that because you liked that. Oh,
you were really into it.
Told me that because I only did it because I thought you liked that. So, like you start.
Now we can just sit on the couch together.
Exactly. And not that we're promoting not running together, but instead it's like, but those little things that you learn, don't.
Unless you're Donald Trump, I promote not running.
Not running, especially not in 2020.
Yeah.
Definitely don't run in 2020.
Eric Holder, you hear about Eric Holder?
Oh, what happened there?
He's talking about he's most likely going to throw his hat in the ring for 2020.
Listen, anybody throw their hat in the ring. I think even if Vladimir Putin threw his hat in the ring right now, he'd get probably more votes than Donald Trump would in 2020. But I digress. So guys, take the time, give yourself an opportunity to learn more about emotional intelligence. And that doesn't necessarily mean read a book or watch a YouTube video. We'd love for you guys to do that. We do it all the time. But everybody's different. Even if you're not going to do that, our recommendation for you all, if you're willing to take it, spend some time getting to know yourself. Even if you have to write down things. Like, I think it sounds weird, but sometimes you go, my husband or my wife did something today that really bothered me. We typically pick up the phone and message them or talk to someone else about it, or we'll text them and go, yo, you believe what my girl just did, right? That's history, right? That's context that you can read back at the end of the day and go, what was it that I didn't like about that?
Man, you're just hitting all kind of points that are like resonating with me right now. One of the things that I did as part of my like drawing back and kind of figuring things out myself and doing that evaluation is I use this app called Evernote. And it's like this collaborative app. It allows you to collaborate with multiple people, but like it's on like your tablet, your phone, your laptop. So like if you have an idea, you can start jotting it down, or you could, add some images, or if you see something, whatever. And then if I share it with you, then you would be able to add and collaborate and all this other stuff.
We use Evernote for project management. So yeah.
Boom. So I was using it as in part as like just like journaling. Like I was just keeping like a journal of like
history.
And it wasn't like every day I would sit down and make a point. It was just like, but if a thought or something happened to me that I thought was like noteworthy in some kind of way, particularly as it related to like this growth that I wanted to experience, I would definitely go back and write it out, type it out, what have you. And there was one that I looked at, like I opened up Evernote for some other project that I was working on, and I came across one of those one of my journal entries when I was like feeling particularly depressed this day. I must have been, because I read past that shit and I was just like, my God, like you were in a funk, my G. And like sometimes it's good to see that progress, right? Like it's, you know what I'm saying? If you're working out, like you want to see progress. That's what keeps you motivated and keeps you going. And like when I saw like how far I had come just from that moment in time, it was definitely like I had to do a victory dance real quick, just because like where I was in, and honestly, it really wasn't that very long ago. It was, I would say like 2.5, 3 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So like, and that time can seem like a very long time, but when you put it in the context of your entire life, it's a very short period. Particularly for a change to occur. So yeah, man, that, journaling, I'm 100% about it. Like I believe that y'all should, you know what I'm saying? Like, even if you do it as a couple, you know what I'm saying? Like, or however, you know what I'm saying? If you don't want to share certain things and just keep it to yourself, that's fine too. But
yeah,
going back and just sometimes getting that energy out of you is like really all you need too. So
and remember, we tend to be selective in the memories that we want to keep as people. It's just natural in us to just not want to remember bad things, only remember good things, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason why this is so important, the reflective aspect of what you just said, is what I was trying to hint at is you want to know what was the driving factor behind why you felt that way, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
That what we call in science a root cause analysis, right? You're doing a root cause analysis to try to understand what was it that drove you to that. Ask yourself why 3 times. Why did I feel that way? Well, because she left me. Right. Why did she leave you? Oh, because I told her that I didn't want to be serious. Why did you tell her you didn't want to be serious? Because I wasn't ready.
Because I didn't want to.
Exactly. And now you go, okay, so the problem is I felt like I was being forced into something that I didn't want. That's a root cause analysis. So now you go, you know what? I can't be in a relationship where I feel like I'm being forced to do things I don't want to do, because I don't ever want to go back to that place that I felt, so bad after that relationship ended, right? That's where communication is key, right? So what you said about, journaling with a partner, communicate with others, guys. And the first level of communication is with yourself. If you're like, that's weird, I don't like talking to myself, or, I don't have the time, right? Like most people say, I don't have the time to do some of the stuff that you and I are talking about here. People are going to say, yeah, how much time do you guys have on your hand that you can write notes about things or
it really doesn't take that much time.
It
really doesn't.
The moment you're in the shower and you have 5 minutes to think. The moment that you're on the bike at the gym and you're cycling and you tell you free your mind, I don't really actually believe in that. I think that the process is freeing your mind by examining these things, right? Like trying to eliminate thoughts from your mind, but only coming back to them later on just makes the weight even heavier.
There's an author that I'm a big fan of. And when I watch his like dissertations or his discussions or his talks, one of the themes that he continually goes back to is this thought of what he calls spaces of deliberation. And what he means by that is like the way we live our lives today is in such a manner that is not conducive to reflecting on that day once it's ended, or reflecting on like certain events once they've passed. Like, if you had a really good day at work and, you sold all kind of shit that you didn't think you was going to sell, and you did an amazing job. Like, we then leave work, get in the car, sit in traffic. We probably have music going or a podcast or something like that. So you're receiving, like you're continuing to receive information, but what's happening to that information once it's here is you have to have that time to digest everything. You have to have that time that's set aside where there's no other distractions, no other anything else going on. And just deliberate on what's happened to you, like deliberate on your experiences throughout the day, whether positive or negative. And I think that's, again, something that was extremely helpful to me as I, kind of went through my struggle and my battle. But yeah, man, like take that time, whether you call it meditating or whatever you call it. Even if it's prayer, if it's meditation, if it's whatever, you got to take that time because it's reflective. You know what I'm saying?
You definitely highlighted something for me that, we were talking a lot about relationships, and, I got Black Stephan over here talking about he dated strippers, and, we talking about it like we've always been these handsome debonaires that we are today. We're not. We were geeks growing up, and you
still geeks.
Well, I'm still a geek, yeah. One of the geekiest things that I can throw into this conversation right here, what you just talked about, is actually makes me think about vision itself. Yes, guys, your eyes. The way your eyes work and your mind work, your eye can actually not see all the things that you see in one image as quickly as you think. In reality, the mind sees millions of pieces of information through your eyes and creates an image that we see. So as you're watching this and you see my hands go across the screen or my hat, your brain is processing millions of pieces of information to create vision through what your eyes are collecting. It's one of the reasons why they say that even though you think your eyes can see something, your eyes are just actually always delayed because your mind has to tell it what it sees. Similarly to what you just said, even though the mind can absorb a lot of information, for it actually to put out an image that makes sense, it still takes time. This is where that listening to this, you're going to be thinking about, oh, that's interesting. And you're going to go back to doing what you do. to reflect on whatever we spoke about or whatever you read elsewhere, or, you know, whatever show you watch. This is where conversations with others come into play, right? Because now you get to, you know, go back and forth and have active thought, right? There's subconscious thought and then there's active thought. And through meditation is actually where you find, even though you're not active, you're actively thinking about things that you might have learned about. So even when you study, people go, well, I'm going to study for 12 hours straight. You actually shouldn't do that. That's not good. You should only study for about 6 and take the other 6 to remember what it is.
Steady long, steady wrong, nigga.
Exactly. You know, don't cram, because cramming is obviously bad. But at the same time, there's how do you memorize things, right? And we're not going to get into Bloom's taxonomy and all of that here today. But with that said, again, if we can impress anything on you guys today, definitely take a tour down the emotional intelligence journey. See if it helps you, if it's something that intrigues you. Get to know yourself. Spend the rest of your life doing it, or spend the next 5 minutes doing it. Either which way, you'll learn a lot. I can guarantee you that. And then always communicate with others, man. Like we've been saying this since episode 1. Talk to somebody different. Talk to somebody you've never met before. Get a different perspective on life. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to agree with them or accept them as like fact or anything like that. It's just, it's interesting, and I'll just keep that somewhere in my head. So, you know, that's what it's about. The E-Cuties movement that we're talking about is
you say the E-Cuties?
Yep, E-Cuties. That's what we are. The E-Cuties movement, you know, with a Q. Cuties with a Q. That's what it is. Get an EQ, emotional intelligence. Woo! And with that,
all right, what do we?
so some people aren't as apt to be able to connect with others. Some people are just introverts. They feel like they just don't know how to do it. You need a little bit of that liquid courage, and that's where our next segment will help you out. Welcome to this week's It's Lit Report.
It's lit.
Hit the folk on them. What do you got for him this week, Black Stephan?
After I cough. So let's start with what I'm smoking. It's almost done. This is actually a cigar that I rolled, a cigarillo that was rolled by me. It has a couple different tobaccos in it. I think the main tobacco is Jalapa, which is from southern Mexico, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But just did like a quick little bunch and roll and just made like a little rustic cigarillo. You know what I'm saying? I like these kinds of things. You may not. I have no idea. I like it. It's amazing. Helps me connect with others, myself, my higher self, and my ancestors. So we're out here. Then, since we're speaking about those kinds of things, my libation today.
Injuria?
Injuro.
Injuro.
So this is a collaboration between two wineries in Italy. One's called Il Censo, and I believe they're in Sicily. And then there is the other producer that collaborated on this is a favorite of mine, Giampero Bella, who does these amazing natural wines, also out of this place called Umbria, which is in Sicily. A lot of old vines, what they call like black vines, like super old grapes. But this is 100% Pericone, I believe is the way that's pronounced. But it's a very like hearty red. For most natural wines, reds tend to be a little bit lighter. This is more like a traditional red in that lots of tannins, lots of alcohol, and 13%. So it's not super heavy, but it's decent. But again, it's done in the style of natural wine, so it does still kind of hit on that lighter side as well. I love it. It's great with fish, with beef, with steak, with all kind of stuff, man. It's definitely amazing. And this is the 2014 iteration. As a matter of fact, I think 2014 and 2016 are the only years that they make this particular collaboration. But if you're in New York, Chambers Street Wines, I think, has it. If you're in LA, I would check either Lou Wines, which is kind of like Los Feliz, or y'all call it Los Feliz. So I would check.
It's Los Feliz.
Yeah, don't call it Los Feliz. It's just it's no. So Lou Wines and Bar and Garden. Actually, this is where I got this one. Bar and Garden in Culver City has these as well. But if you aren't in LA or New York, I would just say go online, Google it. I'm sure you can find a producer. I know that if you're into wines, Rosenthal Wine is the distributor for this. So if you are
from Rosenthal,
yeah. Oh, I met a rep from there yesterday. Oh my God, she poured up like this super old 2003 called a Sagrantino. It's like a $200 bottle, and she just poured it up for us. It was like, here, it's yours, have it. And it was fucking amazing. Like this shit was crazy. But yeah, that is the It's Lit report for what's today, the 21st. Yeah. Now we have it's interesting because I had Chinese food yesterday, so I actually had a fortune cookie. That was pretty interesting. I posted on my IG story, and obviously I thought of you since we do the fortune cookie every week. So I'm curious, what do you got for us?
So I got a fortune cookie, but before I do that, you just reminded me, because of the date, I would be remiss if I didn't take a couple moments here to just give somebody give everyone a quick fact about an idol of mine. So anybody who knows me knows that one of the key philosophers in my life went by the name of Bruce Lee. People know him as a martial artist. Some know him as a philosopher. I choose to know him as both and think he was one of the greatest at both, honestly. Mm-hmm. July 20th actually marked the 45-year anniversary of his passing. And still to this day, his philosophies hold very true. And, I've had business meetings.
Bye.
Yeah, absolutely. R.I.P., bro. I've actually been in business meetings where I've leveraged some of his philosophies and explained to people, and they were like, wow, who said that? And I go, Bruce Lee. And they kind of laugh because they go, well, no, he can't be serious. I go, yeah. His philosophies on Taoism and martial arts and actually were very about being reflective, right? Like being water. Water has no form, but it can go through anything. But if it's asked to, it can be any form that it wants to be, right? And that's one of the things that we live by. And interestingly enough, this week's fortune cookie is you will be rewarded for your patience and understanding. Now, guys, patience is a virtue, but it's also a practical activity.
I gotta say, just because you said that real quick, I had a 12th grade English teacher, Miss Motley. Miss Motley, that was like her signature saying is patience is a virtue. Like that was shout out to anybody that ever had Miss Motley. I guarantee when you heard that phrase, that shit clicked on something in your head.
And if you always wondered what that meant, don't worry about it. What you really need to focus on is the second part of it. It's the action of being patient, right? That is, patience is a virtue is supposed to motivate you to do the second part, which is actively being a patient person. Mm-hmm. We want everything now, right? It's just in our nature to expect everything now. And because we believe that our lives are short, the whole YOLO idea that you highlighted earlier, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, I want it now or it'll never get here.
Right.
You've always heard that cliche saying that the best things in life, sometimes you have to wait for them, right?
Hurry up and wait.
The first one is be patient with yourself. You're an ever-evolving being on a daily basis. You're not going to know who you are when you're 15. You're not going to know who you are when you're 18. You might not even know who you are at the age of 50. You'll keep finding that out over time. What you need to do is use that patience to understand who you are, understand how you are with others, understand how people impact you. And this is all what emotional intelligence and relationships are about, right?
And look, man, the time is going to pass anyway. So it's like you might as well use the time to do something productive with, yourself and possibly end up in a better position than you would have otherwise.
Hell yeah. So we did mention Taco Bell. We mentioned In-N-Out. We talked about Enduro by Rosenthal. We talked about the tobacco leaf. Guys, we have advertisement slots for all of you guys. So holler at us. At 833-402-2349. On Instagram at 40 Acres DHW. Follow us on SoundCloud.com/40 Acres DHW or email us at 40acresdhw@gmail.com. Mm-hmm. As always, we appreciate you taking this weekly episodic journey with us. I'm your boy, Ali, a.k.a. Hoffa, joined by
Black Stephan, Brujo Mars. We out here.
Namaste, and we salute.
All that. Iboru, Ache, Loose.
Peace.